The EFF is heading towards its national conference this weekend, and it is heading to that national conference. Every analyst I read tells me in as weak a position as it has been for a very, very long time. Some high-profile defections we all know about, a significantly reduced performance in the national elections of earlier this year, the opinion polls, how much faith we should put in those, not so sure. But the ones post the election have showed a further decline in EFF support. Their by-election performance has been nothing to write home about and struggling for relevance, perhaps. Second largest opposition party, fourth largest party in the National Assembly after some very bold predictions about how by this time they would be, if not the governing party, very close to being the governing party. Hlumelo Xaba is a governance researcher and political analyst and joins us now. Hlumelo, good afternoon. How much trouble do you think the EFF is in?
Good afternoon to you, John, and thank you very much for having me on your show. Well, firstly, I think that is something that many analysts or political pundits have actually, that's the question that they've been asking lately of how much trouble the EFF is in. I think, firstly, we need to establish the fact that the EFF is in its maturing stage. You know, an organization, firstly, it's not in its infancy stage as they always deem themselves to be, like they're in a formative stage and everything like that. I think the EFF, firstly, has actually surpassed their formative stage. They're still a relatively young organization, but I do believe that they're in a maturing phase in the life of their organization. So going into this conference, they do go into this conference with a lot of uncertainties, firstly, insofar as which people are actually going to remain and which leaders or are going to remain in the party post the NPA that they're going to, as well as whether or not they will still be able to actually maintain their momentum after this conference. We know that the EFF the current status of the EFF is one that is very questionable in terms of members that are loyal and also the legitimacy of their leadership. But I do think that this conference for them must just be used to actually renew themselves and to actually revive or rejuvenate their organization. In terms of them being in trouble, I wouldn't say the EFF. I would say that in terms of how they are perceived by the general public, I do believe that the things that have been happening where high-profile leaders have been leaving the party have caused a lot of public outbursts as well as ructions within the party. But I don't really necessarily believe that the EFF is in trouble. I just feel like it's just going through a phase that they need to pass in terms of ensuring that they actually, like I did say, that they're in a maturing phase at this point in time. And I do believe that with maturity comes challenges such as the ones that they are currently facing now. So I wouldn't say they're really in trouble, but I would just say that they've entered the maturing phase in the life of their organization, which now comes with challenges such as these that they've been experiencing over the past couple of months.
But do they have the leadership to help them overcome those challenges and get into the next phase of the maturity process? They've lost some of the top leadership, perhaps their most charismatic leader behind Julius Malema. We can argue about that. And Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, we don't know whether he's going to be allowed to be at the conference. Many reports that he's being banned from attending. Julius Malema has, I would argue, had dictatorial tendencies within the party for a long time, and he seems even more paranoid now. So I would be quite surprised if the EFF came out of this conference on a positive renewal path. Your view?
Well, like I did mention, that they are in a maturing phase now, and if you do notice that the EFF is a party that subscribes to democratic centralism in terms of how they govern the party. In other words, whatever decisions are taken at the top or at an executive level are binding at lower or peripheral levels of the organization. However, I do believe that in every organization, rather, legitimacy, in other words, how the followers or the members of the party actually view the newly elected leadership is what might actually make or break the EFF, because at the end of the day, if the members of the organization are not really in sync or don't really agree with the people that have been elected, then that might actually pose a threat to the EFF's performance in the 2026 local government elections, as well as their growth actually as an organization in terms of expanding their footprint in all corners of South Africa. However, we should note that the EFF has actually managed to establish themselves as a national organization. In other words, they do have a footprint in all nine provinces, and as much as they did decline, if you can actually check and assess where they were harmed mostly harmed, you'll find that it's actually in KZN, which was the second largest constituency in terms of the electorate in the past elections. So I think that it will all boil down on legitimacy and how the newly elected leadership will be perceived by the members of the party and also some of the provincial and regional leaders within the party. I think it will also what will also determine whether or not the EFF is able to overcome these obstacles is the policies or the strategy rather that they will adopt for the next 5 years, because we do know that the EFF always has its conferences over a period of 5 years. So I do believe that whatever program of action or whatever strategy that they adopt or whatever resolutions rather that they're going to take in this upcoming conference will actually determine how they will fare in the next 5 years in terms of electoral performance and also in terms of actually expanding their footprint and gaining confidence within the electorate in South Africa, because that's what everything boils down to. It's all about how you as an organization can actually lure your voters to actually expand yourself.
Hlumelo, thank you very, very much for sharing those thoughts with us. Hlumelo Xaba is a governance researcher and political analyst.